Last night, the Pro Bowl rosters were debuted. And it's always a massive evening for the NFL. And it's a massive evening for players if they haven't made a Pro Bowl yet. And let me tell you why this is the case. So, for me, my hatred for these fake awards goes back all the way to high school. My sophomore year of high school, I led the entire state of Pennsylvania in goals scored in Western Pennsylvania in assists for our soccer team. My teammate got voted Valley News Dispatch, which is a newspaper from where we're from, Player of the Year, while I was just honorable mention on the team, okay? I led the entire state in goals scored and the Western Pennsylvania in assists, and a teammate of mine, who's a friend of mine, got named Player of the Year. So it was at that moment I knew that everything was just a big joke. Okay, I knew that these awards are just a big joke. Because what more could I have possibly done? I honestly don't know. But I was happy for him in the moment. Couldn't be selfish. Obviously, I had to be happy for him. Didn't tell him how mad I was about this until about 3 months later. Let him enjoy his little fake ceremony that didn't matter and that whole thing. But for me, that's when it all started. So then, whenever I went into college, I was All-American, rookie All-American, then I got All-American my senior year, but I was a Ray Guy finalist, and I came in second place for the Ray Guy Award to a kid that had half the punts I had, much lower average than I had. Just absolutely everything was terrible. But Ray Guy picked him strictly because Ray Guy was friends with the guy's coach. So you compound these things that have happened to me whenever these awards are up and these titles are up and I haven't won. You could see how I could personally become jaded. Then whenever I get to the NFL, there's this massive bonus put into my contract to make a Pro Bowl. It's $250,000. A lot of money, by the way. $250,000 if I get voted in the Pro Bowl. And I have this hatred for these things, but now I have direct financial gain if I do get voted in. So there was a couple years where I did okay and I didn't get in there, but like my fourth year, I think, or my fifth year, I had a great year. And I kept telling myself, like, hey, this could be the year where I make the Pro Bowl. This could be the year where that $250,000 thing happens. And I start like hyping myself up to fall in love with this completely fake, not relevant award or title, because really the only thing that matters in team sports is if your team likes you, if your coaches like you, if the players respect you in the locker room, if the equipment managers and the athletic trainers and the people that you work with and surround yourself with appreciate and respect what you do and you make your team better and win games. Honestly, if you're a true team player, that's the only thing that matters. And for me, that was the only thing that mattered. But whenever you put $250,000 on something, all of a sudden you start worrying about a little bit more. And whenever that was put into the contract, I thought back to my sophomore year of high school. I thought back to college when I got screwed out of these awards. I'm like, well, this is just how it's going to be for the rest of my life. So let's assume that that is never going to happen. Well, hello there. Utilize the promo code Pay the Bills and get $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. Now, back to the magic. I have a good year. My name starts getting thrown out there a little bit. And all of a sudden, it's like, wait, am I going to make the Pro Bowl? I started hyping myself up. And then like a week before it was supposed to happen, I start talking myself down like, oh, you're not going to make it. Remember, you get screwed out of this. Don't get your hopes up. And then the day before it's to be announced, the night before I go to bed, I'm like, it'd be really cool if you get voted for the Pro Bowl, Pat. Not only is it vindication and all that stuff, but the $250,000 would be great. I mean, that's just good news. And it's nice to be recognized by your peers, coaches, and fans as the best in the game. So I go to bed, I go into work the next day, and I ask our PR guy, I'm like, yo, did I make it? He's like, oh, we don't know yet. I'm like, you're lying to me. I know that you know. And he was like, I really won't know until this afternoon. So we go to practice. We come out after practice. I'm like, did I make it? He's like, they haven't told me yet. I'm like, what the hell with them? I'm going home. So the rest of the team had meetings to watch practice after practice to like kind of recap the film so we could go in later the next day. Something was going on. And I did not have to do that. So I went home. I was driving home. And I'm like, damn, another year. I got my hopes up. There's no reason for me to be even excited about this because I thought the team would tell me. I'm like 3/4 of the way home, and I get a call from the PR guy, and he's like, where you at? I'm like, I'm close to home right now. He's like, I need you to come back. And I was like, why is that? He was like, you know why. And I'm like, I don't know why. He was like, well, coach would like to announce the rest of the team, the Pro Bowlers. And I never had this moment where I had talked myself off of the ledge of being a seven. I was like, I made the Pro Bowl? He was like, yeah, you made the Pro Bowl. I'm like, let's go. So I hang up on him. I do a U-turn in the middle of a highway. I head back to the facility, and I put on like I'm so paid, right? I'm so paid by Akon and on the thing. Yep. And I'm driving back, and I'm having this entire moment. I get back into the facility. Both me and Vinatieri made it. Chuck wanted to introduce us to the team. So after the practice, after they had their meetings, after practice, everybody went in the team meeting room. Chuck introduced us. I think T.Y. made it. Luck made it. He wanted to introduce all of us. And it was that moment with the rest of my teammates where they were like happy, like clapping for us, that it was a real vindicating moment. It was like, you know what I'm doing, people are recognizing. My peers are recognizing that I've kind of changed the game a little bit. My peers have recognized all the hard work that I put in. So you immediately have this moment of gratification where you're like so thankful and grateful for the entire thing, along with the $250,000 financial bonus. But that moment where your teammates are like happy for you is really the best moment of the whole thing. Because then as soon as I got in the car to drive home, I was like, yeah, but who cares? Who cares? And I think that's the biggest difference between being a first-time Pro Bowler and then the next time I got voted in the Pro Bowl where I chose not to play in it. It's like that first time, it feels so good to have that vindication of like people recognize what I'm doing because there's so much BS in the world. And a lot of awards we could go buy an Emmy right now if we wanted. A local regional Emmy. We could go buy one right now. It's like $250. You read people on their Twitter bio, they're like Emmy Award winning. It's like, no, any Emmy Award buying is what you should call yourself. It's like every award is normally crap, but whenever you get that first Pro Bowl nod, it's so like exhilarating where you're like, you know what, finally. And then afterwards you realize like, a lot of bad players make it in the Pro Bowl strictly because of their name. A lot of this happens. A lot of that happens. And I think that's the biggest difference between like young guys. Like I know Darius Leonard last year. He was Rookie of the Year for some people. He was All-Pro for some people, which we'll talk about in a minute. But he didn't make the Pro Bowl, and he was like actually hurt about it. And I wanted to tell him as somebody like a little bit older, like, hey, this doesn't matter. But then I thought back to myself. I was like, you know what? Whenever I was going in for my potential first one, I would have been very upset if I didn't make it. I can respect it. But I think that's the difference between the first batch of Pro Bowlers versus repeat Pro Bowlers, where it's like, I appreciate and respect the honor. It's very nice to be recognized by people, but I very much understand that this is a subjective thing, not an objective thing. And that's why you can get people's opinions and politics involved, and it doesn't really matter. Now, speaking of not really mattering, but people hyping it up, All-Pro does not mean a damn thing. People say All-Pro is worth more, and when they talk about Hall of Fames, they're like, well, he was an All-Pro 5 times. All-Pro means that the media people think that you're the best. So if you don't have a good relationship with the media people, you're never going to get voted in. And in my position, the media people have no idea what's happening in punting and kicking, so they have no clue what's going on. Now, granted, I was All-Pro at one point, but there was years where I should have been, and I should have been in the Pro Bowl. It didn't happen, but it was just like these people have no idea what they're talking about. Now, for some positions, I would assume that the media knows what's good and what isn't good. So like for quarterbacks, let's assume that the media gets it right and that type of stuff. But don't undersell their relationship with different players too on who gets voted into All-Pro. So I never really gave a damn about All-Pro. I cared about the players' vote for Pro Bowl more than anything else, more than the fan vote, more than the coach's vote. I cared about the players' vote. But for me, I love the fodder. I love the conversation. It's a great honor for people, but it's obviously made out to be a much bigger deal than it actually is. And I think we all understand that about all awards. If you have an actual brain, you can see how people get vindicated. You can see how people get heartbroken, but it's all a bunch of malarkey in my eyes.
Do you think players and coaches take it seriously when they're voting for the Pro Bowl?
Oh, yeah, we do. But also now there's politics in that too. So you're not allowed to vote for your own team. So you're asked to vote like who your 3 at each position are, 2, whatever it is. Who's your first team Pro Bowl or second team Pro Bowl? I think alternate too. I don't know if it's 3 or 2 for each position. You're not allowed to vote for anybody on your team. But if you have a guy who you know deserves it at a position, who's probably not going to get enough votes, you're like, okay, who's probably going to beat him out? Let's leave him out of the list. So there is, I mean, there is politicking and everything. And that's why you can't really take it serious, because if it was just, if it wasn't subjective, if it was just complete facts, like, hey, you are the best, which is impossible to do because situations are situational. That is a real thing. So it's hard to take serious. And that's, I think if it wasn't for my jaded past with these types of awards and titles and things like that, I would probably have a very different view. But I've gone on to be very, very successful in a lot of things. And I have not won a lot of awards I probably think I should have won. And that's why I don't give a real damn about them. But that first time I got voted in the Pro Bowl, I remember having this incredible feeling of like excitement. Like, okay, they like me. They really, really like me. And then as soon as that passes, you're like, there's some other guys that are pretty good too. They probably could have got in if they deserved it. I think the process of voting in the Pro Bowl is an interesting one. where the fans vote. Now, granted, remember, if you're on a popular team, that's probably going to help you a lot. If you have nowadays with the way Twitter operates, if you have a good team that is good in social, that probably helps you out a lot. If you have a good Twitter, it helps you out a lot. If you're in like a wasteland, for instance, a team that never gets talked about, if you're like the Sacramento Kings of the NFL, it's probably going to be very difficult for you to get into the Pro Bowl strictly because 1/3 of the vote revolves around having fans. And if you're a team that doesn't have fans, like the Detroit Lions don't have a lot of fans. They have fans, but it's not a massive amount of fans because people like winners, and that's a team that hasn't done that a lot.
True.
And by the way, anybody that says like, oh, you're a fair weather fan, everybody's a fair weather fan. Look at stadiums whenever teams are doing well, and look at stadiums whenever teams aren't doing well. There's only a couple teams that can really carry their weight, and that's because it's been around for generations and generations. But whenever you're in a big market on a good team or you're on primetime television a lot, obviously it's going to be skewed for the fans a little bit more. But I think it's a third fans, a third players, and a third coaches. I think they should add refs into that. Now, I think refs should also get a vote because they're on the field.
Yeah.
Like for me, every time I punted in the years that I was doing well towards the back half of my career, like me and the refs would have a great interaction. Like if I hit the hell out of one, they'd be like, Pat, bomb it. Like it would be like a good give and take while we're jogging down the field together. And if I hit one not so good, they'd be like, Patty, we look forward to this. And you just hit a shit. You know what I mean? Like there's like a real thing. I think refs who are on the field should have a little bit more of a say. Now, granted, they'll get it wrong. I mean, the Alberta Riveron gang will get it wrong this year. But I think there is something to be said about making the Pro Bowl.